The ancient tree screamed as the golden axe bit deep into its bark, and Marcus felt his heart turn to ice as he heard the voice whisper, "The first secret will cost you your son's laughter. The second will take your wife's love. The third—" The voice faded into a gurgling sound as golden sap poured from the wound like liquid sunlight, and Marcus dropped his axe in horror, realizing he had just made the worst mistake of his life. But let me tell you how it all began. 3 days earlier, Marcus Goldweaver was the richest merchant in the kingdom of Ethros. His shops filled the main square, selling silk from the east, spices from the south, and jewels from the mountain caves. His house was the biggest in town, with marble floors and golden doorknobs. But Marcus always wanted more. More gold, more land, more everything. He would mutter to himself as he counted his coins each night. His wife, Elena, would shake her head sadly. His 10-year-old son, Tommy, would tug at his father's sleeve, begging him to play, but Marcus was always too busy counting money or planning his next business deal. One foggy morning, a strange old woman came to his shop. She wore a tattered brown cloak and carried a walking stick made of twisted wood. Her eyes were the color of storm clouds, and when she smiled, Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "I have something special to sell," she said, her voice like leaves rustling in the wind. "Something that will make you richer than any king." Marcus laughed. "Old woman, I already have everything I need. What could you possibly have that I would want?" The woman's smile grew wider. "I have a map," she whispered, pulling out a piece of parchment that seemed to glow with its own light. A map to the talking tree of Umburu Forest. Marcus had heard stories about Umburu Forest. It was a place where strange things happened, where the trees grew so tall they touched the clouds, and where magic still lived. Most people stayed away from it, but Marcus wasn't most people. "A talking tree?" he scoffed. "That's just a children's story." "Is it?" the woman asked, her eyes twinkling. "The tree knows secrets, Marcus Goldweaver. Secrets about the future. Secrets about where to find the greatest treasures. Secrets about which ships will sink and which will return with holds full of gold." Marcus felt his heart start to beat faster. If such a tree really existed, he could become the richest man in the world. He could buy entire kingdoms. "How much?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. 100 gold pieces, the woman said. It was a lot of money, but Marcus didn't hesitate. He counted out the coins and grabbed the map. The moment his fingers touched the glowing parchment, he felt a strange warmth spread through his hands. "Remember," the old woman said as she tucked the coins into her cloak, "every gift has a price. Some prices are higher than others." Then she turned and walked out of his shop, disappearing into the fog like she had never been there at all. Marcus studied the map all day. It showed a path through Umburu Forest, past the Whispering Stones and the Lake of Mirrors, to a clearing where a single tree stood. The tree was drawn with golden ink, and tiny words were written around it in a language Marcus couldn't read. That night, Marcus told Elena he was going on a business trip. He didn't mention the map or the talking tree. He kissed his wife goodbye and ruffled Tommy's hair, promising to bring back presents. But his mind was already in the forest, already hearing the tree's secrets. The next morning, Marcus packed his finest clothes, his sharpest axe, and a bag of tools. If the tree really could tell him secrets, he would find a way to take those secrets home with him. Maybe he could cut off a branch or carve words into the bark, or even cut down the whole tree and bring it back to his garden. The journey to Umburu Forest took 2 days. Marcus rode his best horse through rolling hills and across babbling streams. The closer he got to the forest, the stranger things became. The grass grew in perfect spirals. The flowers sang tiny songs when the wind touched them. A family of rabbits walked on their hind legs and tipped their ears to him like little hats. But Marcus barely noticed these wonders. His mind was focused on one thing: the tree and its secrets. On the second day, he reached the edge of Umburu Forest. The trees here were taller than any he had ever seen, their branches twisted together like giant fingers. The air smelled of honey and old magic. Somewhere in the distance, he could hear the sound of bells ringing, though he couldn't see any bells. Marcus tied his horse to a tree and began walking. The map glowed brighter as he went deeper into the forest, showing him the way. He passed the whispering stones, which really did whisper, though he couldn't understand what they were saying. He walked around the lake of mirrors, where his reflection showed not just his face, but the faces of everyone he had ever cheated or been mean to. Finally, after hours of walking, Marcus came to a clearing. And there, in the center of the clearing, stood the most beautiful tree he had ever seen. It was enormous, with a trunk so wide that 20 men holding hands couldn't wrap around it. Its bark was silver and gold, shifting colors like water. Its leaves were every color of the rainbow, and they chimed softly when the wind touched them. Fruit hung from its branches, fruit that looked like jewels and smelled like every delicious thing Marcus had ever tasted. But the most amazing thing was the face. Carved into the trunk of the tree was the face of a wise old man, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. As Marcus watched, the eyes blinked. "Welcome, Marcus Goldweaver," the tree said, its voice like thunder and whispers combined. "I have been expecting you." Marcus felt his knees go weak. The tree really could talk. All the stories were true. You know my name?" Marcus stammered. "I know many things," the tree replied. "I know you have come seeking secrets. I know you believe knowledge is something to be owned, like gold or land. But wisdom is not a thing to be possessed, Marcus Goldweaver. It is a gift to be shared." Marcus didn't care about wisdom or sharing. He wanted those secrets. The old woman said, "You know about the future, about treasures and ships and gold." The tree's expression grew sad. "Indeed I do. But are you sure you want to know? Some knowledge brings great sorrow with it." "I'm sure," Marcus said quickly. "Tell me about the ships. Which ones will return with the most gold?" The tree sighed, and when it did, all the leaves rustled like a sad song. "Very well. But remember, I warned you. In 3 days, a ship called the Golden Dawn will arrive at the harbor. It carries spices worth more than a king's ransom. Buy everything Captain Rodriguez has to sell, and you will triple your money." Marcus's eyes lit up. This was exactly what he wanted to hear. "More. Tell me more." "Are you certain?" the tree asked. "The first secret comes with a small price. The second will cost more. The third will cost the most of all." Marcus waved his hand impatiently. "I have plenty of money. I can afford any price." "Some prices are not paid with money," the tree said quietly. But Marcus wasn't listening. He was already planning how to spend his newfound riches. "Tell me the second secret," he demanded. The tree's face grew even sadder. "In 1 month, there will be a great storm. Every ship in the harbor will be destroyed except those that sail to the eastern cove. Move your ships there, and you will be the only merchant with goods to sell." Marcus could barely contain his excitement. He would be the richest man in the world. "And the third secret?" "Marcus," the tree said, its voice filled with warning. "Please reconsider. The third secret will cost you more than you can imagine." But Marcus was drunk on greed. "Tell me." The tree closed its eyes for a long moment. When it opened them again, they were filled with tears of golden sap. "In 6 months, the kingdom will discover a new land across the sea, a land filled with gold and precious stones. The king will send explorers, and whoever sponsors the first expedition will become richer than anyone in history." "But Marcus, the price." "I don't care about the price," Marcus shouted. "I need to know how to get there first." The tree began to glow with an inner light. "The path lies through the Savage Straits, but only during the new moon. The explorer you seek is named Captain Blackwood, and he drinks at the Sailor's Rest Tavern every Tuesday night. But Marcus, listen to me very carefully. The price for this knowledge is—" But Marcus had heard enough. He had the information he needed. Now he just had to figure out how to take it home with him. What if he forgot the details? What if he mixed up the names or the dates? He needed to capture the tree's voice somehow, to make sure he remembered every word. That's when he saw his axe glinting in the sunlight, and a terrible idea began to form in his mind. "Thank you for the secrets," Marcus said, picking up his axe. But I need to make sure I don't forget them. The tree's eyes widened in alarm.
Marcus, no.
What are you planning? I'm going to cut you down, Marcus said, his voice cold with determination. I'll take you back to my garden. That way, I can ask you questions whenever I want. Marcus, you don't understand, the tree cried. I am not just a tree. I am the guardian of this forest. I am the keeper of balance between the magical world and yours. If you cut me down, terrible things will happen. But Marcus wasn't listening. All he could think about was how much richer he would be with a talking tree in his backyard. His neighbors would be so jealous. Kings would come to ask him questions. He would charge them mountains of gold for each answer. Please, the tree begged. I have given you what you asked for. Take the knowledge and go. Use it wisely, and it will bring you happiness. But if you cut me down, the secrets will turn to curses. Marcus raised his axe high above his head. The golden blade caught the sunlight and seemed to burst into flames. You're just trying to trick me. Trees can't curse people. I am not just any tree, the tree shouted, its voice booming like thunder. I am the tree of truth and time. I have stood in this clearing for 1,000 years, keeping the balance between what is and what could be. If you destroy me, you will destroy that balance. But Marcus was beyond reason. Greed had consumed his heart completely. He brought the axe down with all his strength. The moment the golden blade touched the silver bark, the world exploded into light and sound. The tree screamed, a sound like breaking glass and crying children and the last breath of dying stars. Golden sap sprayed everywhere, covering Marcus from head to toe. The ground beneath his feet began to shake, and the very air seemed to catch fire. And that's when Marcus heard the tree's voice for the last time, weak and fading, whispering the words that would haunt him forever. The first secret will cost you your son's laughter. The second will take your wife's love. The third will cost you everything you hold dear. And the only way to break the curse is to... The voice faded into silence as the great tree crashed to the ground, its magical light dimming and dying. Marcus stood in the wreckage of his greed, covered in golden sap, his axe still in his trembling hands. As the dust settled, Marcus realized the forest had gone completely silent.
No birdsang. No insects bast.
Even the wind had stopped blowing. The only sound was his own ragged breathing and the terrible echo of the tree's final words. He had gotten what he wanted, the secrets of the future. But as he looked down at the fallen tree, its beautiful face now still and lifeless, Marcus felt a cold dread spreading through his chest. What had the tree been trying to tell him about the price? What did it mean that the secrets would turn to curses? And most terrifying of all, what had been the end of that final sentence? The only way to break the curse is to... What? Marcus dropped his axe and fell to his knees beside the tree's massive trunk. He pressed his ear against the bark, hoping to hear even the faintest whisper, but there was nothing. The tree was dead, and with it any chance of learning how to undo what he had done. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the clearing, Marcus finally understood the full horror of his actions. He had been so focused on gaining the tree's secrets that he had destroyed the very thing that could have saved him from their consequences. In the growing darkness, Marcus heard something that made his blood run cold. From somewhere deep in the forest came the sound of laughter, but not happy laughter. It was the cruel, mocking laughter of something that had been waiting a very long time for this moment. And in that laughter, Marcus heard the echo of his son's voice, twisted and wrong, as if Tommy was laughing at a joke that wasn't funny at all. The first curse had begun. Marcus ran through the forest faster than he had ever run in his life. Behind him, the cruel laughter echoed through the trees, getting louder and more terrible with each step. Branches scraped his face and roots tried to trip him, but he didn't stop. He had to get home. He had to see Tommy and Elena. He had to make sure they were safe. The journey that had taken him 2 days to complete now seemed to take forever. Every shadow looked like a monster. Every sound made him jump. The golden sap on his clothes had hardened into a sticky, uncomfortable shell that cracked when he moved. But worst of all was the voice in his head. The tree's final words repeating over and over. The first secret will cost you your son's laughter. What did that mean? How could a secret cost laughter? Marcus tried to convince himself it was all nonsense, that the tree had been trying to scare him. But deep in his heart he knew the truth. Magic was real, and he had just made a terrible enemy of it. When Marcus finally reached his house 3 days later, he was exhausted, dirty, and more frightened than he had ever been in his life. The sun was setting, painting the sky the color of blood. He stumbled through his front door, calling out for his family.
Elena.
Tommy, I'm home. His wife appeared in the doorway of the kitchen, and Marcus felt his heart sink. Elena's face was streaked with tears, and her eyes were red from crying. She looked at him with such sadness that Marcus wanted to hide. Marcus, she whispered, where have you been? Something's wrong with Tommy. Something's very wrong. Marcus felt like a cold hand had grabbed his heart. What do you mean? What's wrong with him? Come and see, Elena said, leading him upstairs to Tommy's room. Tommy was sitting on his bed, staring at the wall. When he saw his father, he turned to look at him, and Marcus gasped. Tommy's face was completely blank. Not sad, not happy, not angry, just empty. Like someone had erased all emotion from his features. Hello, father, Tommy said in a flat, emotionless voice. Did you have a good trip? Marcus knelt beside his son's bed. Tommy, what's wrong? Are you feeling sick? I feel fine, Tommy replied in that same strange, empty voice. I am not sick. I am not sad. I am not happy. I am nothing. But what about your toys? Marcus asked desperately. What about your favorite game? Remember how we used to play pirates? Tommy looked at his father with eyes that seemed older than his 10 years. I remember, he said, but I do not care. Nothing seems funny anymore, father. Nothing makes me want to smile. I have forgotten how to laugh. Elena grabbed Marcus's arm. It started 3 days ago, she whispered. The same day you left. He was playing in the garden, laughing at something a butterfly was doing. Then suddenly he just stopped. He hasn't laughed or smiled since. He won't even cry. It's like all his joy has been sucked away. Marcus felt the world spinning around him. The tree's curse was real. His son's laughter was gone, and it was all his fault. The doctor came, Elena continued. He said Tommy is perfectly healthy. There's nothing wrong with his body. But Marcus, it's like someone stole his soul. That night, Marcus sat in his study, holding his head in his hands. The first secret was supposed to make him rich. The golden dawn was arriving tomorrow, just as the tree had predicted. But what good was money if Tommy couldn't laugh? What good was gold if his son was empty inside? He tried everything he could think of to make Tommy smile. He told funny stories. He bought silly toys. He even hired a clown to perform in their garden. But Tommy just watched everything with those empty eyes, understanding that things were supposed to be funny, but unable to feel any joy. The next morning, the golden dawn arrived at the harbor, exactly as the tree had predicted. Marcus went to meet Captain Rodriguez, his heart heavy with guilt. The ship was indeed filled with spices worth a fortune, cinnamon and pepper and saffron that sparkled like jewels. Any other day, Marcus would have been jumping with excitement. How much for everything? Marcus asked, though he barely cared about the answer. 2,000 gold pieces, Captain Rodriguez replied. These spices come from the farthest islands. They are worth 3 times that much. Marcus paid without even trying to bargain. He arranged for the spices to be moved to his warehouses, knowing that he would indeed triple his money within a week, just as the tree had said. But as he watched the workers loading the precious cargo, all he could think about was Tommy's empty face. The tree's first secret had made him richer, but at what cost? Over the next few weeks, Marcus's guilt grew heavier. He had never realized how much Tommy's laughter had meant to him. The house felt cold and silent without the sound of his son's giggles. Elena tried to hide her own sadness, but Marcus could see it eating away at her. Then came the day of the great storm. Marcus woke up to the sound of thunder and the howling of wind. Outside his window, he could see the harbor being lashed by waves as tall as houses. The storm was just as the tree had predicted, violent and destructive and terrible. Marcus had already moved his ships to the eastern cove, following the tree's second secret. While every other merchant in the kingdom watched their vessels being smashed against the rocks, Marcus's ships rode out the storm in the safety of the protected harbor. When the storm finally passed, Marcus was the only merchant left with goods to sell. Desperate people came to him with bags of gold, begging for food and cloth and medicine. In a single day, he made more money than he had in his entire life. But as he counted his coins that night, Marcus felt sick to his stomach. The second secret had made him incredibly wealthy, but he knew what it would cost him. The tree had warned him, "The second will take your wife's love." He didn't have to wait long to find out what that meant. The next morning, Elena came to his study with a strange look in her eyes. She sat down across from him, and Marcus could see that something had changed. The warmth that had always been there when she looked at him was gone. "Marcus," she said in a voice that was polite but cold, "I need to talk to you." "What is it?" Marcus asked, though he already knew. "I've been thinking about us," Elena said. "About our marriage. About how you've changed." "I haven't changed," Marcus protested. But even as he said it, he knew it wasn't true. "You used to care about people," Elena continued. "You used to want to help others. But now you only care about money. Even with Tommy sick, all you think about is business." "That's not true," Marcus cried. "I love Tommy. I love you." Elena looked at him with eyes that were sad but distant. "I know you think you do," she said. "But love isn't just a feeling, Marcus. It's something you do. It's choosing to put someone else's happiness before your own. And you haven't done that in a very long time." Marcus felt panic rising in his chest. "Elena, please. I know I've been focused on work lately, but I can change. I can be better." "I don't think you can," Elena said quietly. "I don't think you even want to. When was the last time you asked how I was feeling? When was the last time you noticed that I've been crying myself to sleep every night, worried about our son?" Marcus opened his mouth to answer, but he couldn't. He had been so focused on his guilt and his business that he hadn't paid attention to Elena's pain. "I'm not leaving you," Elena said. "I would never abandon Tommy, especially not now. But I need you to understand something. I don't love you anymore. I care about you because you're Tommy's father, and I'll stay with you for his sake. But the love I used to feel for you is gone. It died a little bit each day as I watched you choose gold over your family." Marcus felt like the ground had fallen out from under him. "Elena, please, give me another chance. I'll prove to you that I can change." But Elena was already standing up.
"I'm sorry, Marcus."
"Some things, once broken, can't be fixed." She walked to the door, then turned back. "The strange thing is, I don't even feel sad about it anymore. It's like someone took that feeling away from me, just like they took Tommy's laughter." After she left, Marcus sat alone in his study, surrounded by his wealth and his ledgers and his plans for the future. He had more money than he had ever dreamed of, but he had lost the two things that mattered most to him: his son's joy and his wife's love. Two curses down, one to go. But even as Marcus mourned what he had lost, he couldn't stop thinking about the third secret. The tree had said that in 6 months, the kingdom would discover a new land filled with gold and precious stones. If Marcus could be the first to sponsor an expedition, he would become richer than anyone in history. The rational part of his mind screamed at him to stop. He had already lost so much. What could the third curse possibly take from him? But the greedy part of his heart whispered that maybe, just maybe, he could find a way to have both the wealth and his family. Maybe he could use the money to fix Tommy. Maybe he could win back Elena's love. As winter turned to spring, Marcus threw himself into preparing for the expedition. He searched every tavern in the kingdom until he found Captain Blackwood, a tough, weathered sailor with scars on his hands and secrets in his eyes. Just as the tree had predicted, the captain drank at the sailor's rest every Tuesday night. "I hear you're looking for investors," Marcus said, sliding onto the bar stool next to the captain. Captain Blackwood looked him up and down. Depends on what kind of investing you're talking about, merchant. The kind that involves new lands and old treasures, Marcus replied carefully. The captain's eyes sharpened. That's dangerous talk in a place like this. But if you're serious about adventure, meet me at the docks tomorrow night. Come alone. The next evening, Marcus found Captain Blackwood standing beside a ship that looked like it had sailed through 100 storms. The wood was dark and scarred, but the vessel looked strong and fast. This is the Shadowhawk, the captain said. She's not pretty, but she's the only ship that can make it through the Savage Straits during the new moon. The Savage Straits? Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer. The captain nodded. Dangerous waters, full of rocks and whirlpools and things that don't belong in the natural world. But they're also the only way to reach the Golden Isles. Marcus felt his heart race. The Golden Isles, that must be the new land the tree had mentioned. How do you know about these islands? Captain Blackwood smiled grimly. I've been there before, merchant. Barely made it back alive. The islands are real, and they're full of more gold than you can imagine. But they're also cursed. Every man who's ever tried to claim their treasure has paid a terrible price. What kind of price? Marcus asked, though he was afraid he already knew. The kind that makes you wish you'd never been born, the captain replied. But if you're brave enough to risk it, I'll take you there. The next new moon is in 2 weeks. It'll cost you 10,000 gold pieces, and I can't promise you'll come back. Marcus didn't hesitate. I'll pay 20,000 if you promise to get me there first. The captain's eyes widened. 20,000? Are you mad? What could be worth that much risk? Everything, Marcus whispered. Everything I've ever lost. As they shook hands to seal the deal, Marcus felt a strange sensation, like invisible chains wrapping around his heart. The third secret was about to fulfill itself, and with it would come the final curse. But what would it cost him? He had already lost Tommy's laughter and Elena's love. What else could the tree take from him? In the distance, thunder rumbled across the clear night sky, and Marcus could swear he heard the sound of laughter. The same cruel, mocking laughter that had followed him out of Umburu forest. The final curse was coming, and Marcus was walking straight into its embrace. The voyage to the Golden Isles began on the night of the new moon. Marcus stood on the deck of the Shadowhawk, watching the dark waters of the Savage Straits stretch out before them like a black mirror. The crew was silent and tense, their faces pale in the moonlight. Even Captain Blackwood seemed nervous, constantly checking his compass and muttering prayers under his breath. Stay close to the ship, the captain warned Marcus. These waters play tricks on a man's mind. I've seen sailors jump overboard, thinking they heard their mothers calling them home. Marcus nodded, but he wasn't really listening. His mind was on the golden treasure waiting for him on the islands. With that much wealth, surely he could find a way to break the curses. Maybe he could hire the greatest wizards in the world to restore Tommy's laughter. Maybe he could buy Elena gifts so beautiful that she would remember how to love him again. As the ship sailed deeper into the straits, strange things began to happen. The water around them started to glow with an eerie green light. Fish with human faces swam alongside the ship, their mouths opening and closing as if they were trying to speak. In the distance, Marcus could see islands that appeared and disappeared like mirages. Those aren't real, Captain Blackwood explained when Marcus pointed them out. The straits are full of phantom islands. Ships that try to land on them are never seen again. But Marcus barely heard him, because floating just above the water, he could see something that made his blood run cold. It was the old woman from his shop, the one who had sold him the map. She was walking on the waves as if they were solid ground, her storm cloud eyes fixed on Marcus with a knowing smile. Do you see her? Marcus whispered to the captain. See who? Captain Blackwood asked, looking in the direction Marcus was pointing. But the woman was gone. Hours passed, and the ship sailed on through the treacherous waters. Marcus tried to sleep, but every time he closed his eyes, he heard voices. Tommy's voice, calling for his father. Elena's voice, begging him to come home. And underneath it all, the tree's voice, whispering the words he had never heard the end of. The only way to break the curse is to. Just before dawn, Captain Blackwood shook Marcus awake. "We're here," he said grimly. "The Golden Isles." Marcus rushed to the deck and gasped. Before them rose 3 islands that seemed to be made of pure gold. The beaches were golden sand, the cliffs were golden rock, and the trees had leaves that glittered like coins in the morning sun. It was the most beautiful sight Marcus had ever seen. "Incredible," he breathed. "How much gold do you think is here?" "More than you can imagine," Captain Blackwood replied. "But remember what I told you about the curse. Every man who's taken gold from these islands has paid a terrible price." Marcus laughed, but it was a bitter sound. "I've already paid terrible prices, Captain. What more could these islands do to me?" They rowed to shore in a small boat. The moment Marcus's feet touched the golden sand, he felt a strange tingling sensation, like electricity running through his body. The air here was thick and sweet, and everything seemed to shimmer with an inner light. "The gold is in the caves," Captain Blackwood said, pointing to a series of openings in the cliff face. "But I'm not going in there. I'll wait here with the boat. You have until sunset to gather what you can carry." Marcus didn't waste any time. He grabbed a large sack and headed for the nearest cave. The moment he stepped inside, his eyes widened in amazement. The walls were covered in veins of pure gold, and the floor was littered with precious stones. Rubies the size of his fist, emeralds that glowed with their own light, diamonds that sparkled like captured stars. Marcus began stuffing his sack with treasures, laughing with wild joy. This was it. This was the answer to all his problems. With this much wealth, he could buy anything, fix anything, have anything he wanted. But as he reached for a particularly large ruby, he heard a voice behind him. "Hello, Marcus." He spun around and saw the old woman from his shop standing in the cave entrance. But she looked different now, taller, more powerful, with eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of ages. "You," Marcus breathed. "You're the one who sold me the map." "I am," the woman said calmly. "And I am also the one who has been watching you make choice after choice driven by greed instead of love." "What do you want?" Marcus demanded, clutching his sack of treasures. "I want to give you one last chance," the woman said. "One final opportunity to choose wisdom over wealth, love over greed." Marcus laughed harshly. "It's too late for that. I've already lost everything that mattered to me. My son can't laugh, my wife doesn't love me. All I have left is gold." "Is that really what you think?" the woman asked sadly. "Marcus, you still don't understand. The curses aren't permanent. They were never meant to be. They were meant to teach you something." "Teach me what?" Marcus shouted. "That wanting to be successful is wrong? That trying to provide for my family is evil?" "No," the woman said gently. "To teach you that wisdom is not something you can own. It's something you must earn through humility, through admitting when you're wrong, through putting others before yourself." She stepped closer, and Marcus could see tears in her ancient eyes. "I am not just an old woman, Marcus. I am the spirit of the tree you destroyed. When you cut me down, you didn't kill me, you set me free from my wooden form. I have been following you, watching you, hoping you would learn from your mistakes." Marcus felt his knees go weak. You're the tree?" "I am," she confirmed. "And I have been waiting for you to ask the right question. Not, how can I get more gold? But, how can I fix what I've broken? Then tell me," Marcus cried, dropping his sack of treasures. "Tell me how to break the curses. Tell me how to save my family." The tree spirit smiled, and for the first time since this all began, Marcus saw hope in her expression. "The curse can only be broken by an act of true sacrifice. You must give up something you value more than anything else in the world." Marcus looked at the pile of gold and jewels at his feet. "You want me to give up the treasure? Fine. I'll leave it all here." "No, Marcus," the tree spirit said sadly. "You still don't understand. The treasure isn't what you value most. Your greed is what you value most." Your belief that you can own everything, control everything, buy everything. That is what you must sacrifice. I don't understand, Marcus said desperately. You must choose to help others instead of helping yourself, the tree spirit explained. You must use your wealth not to make yourself richer, but to make the world better. You must learn to listen instead of demanding. You must learn to give instead of taking. Marcus felt something breaking inside his chest. Not his heart, but the wall of greed that had grown around it. What if I can't? What if I'm too selfish to change? Then you will live forever with the consequences of your choices, the tree spirit said. But Marcus, I believe you can change. I have seen the pain in your eyes when you look at Tommy. I have seen the sorrow in your heart when Elena turns away from you. That pain, that sorrow, that is love trying to break through your greed. Marcus fell to his knees on the golden sand. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry for cutting you down. I'm sorry for being so greedy and selfish. I'm sorry for hurting my family. Saying sorry is the first step, the tree spirit said gently. But it's not enough. You must prove that you've learned by your actions. How? Marcus asked. Tell me how to prove it. The tree spirit pointed to the cave full of treasures. This gold belongs to no one. It is a gift from the earth itself. You can take it as you planned and use it to make yourself the richest man in history. Or you can leave it here and return home to your family with nothing but love in your heart. Marcus looked at the glittering treasures. A part of him still wanted to take them to fulfill the third secret and become incredibly wealthy. But a stronger part of him, the part that remembered Tommy's laughter and Elena's smile, knew what he had to do. I choose my family, Marcus said, standing up and walking away from the gold. I choose love over greed. The moment he spoke those words, the world around him exploded into light. The golden islands began to fade like a dream, and Marcus felt himself being lifted up, flying through the air with the tree spirit beside him. Where are we going? He asked. Home, the tree spirit replied, to finish what we started. When the light faded, Marcus found himself standing in his own garden. It was sunset, and the warm light painted everything in shades of gold and orange. But more importantly, he could hear something that made his heart soar with joy, the sound of laughter. Tommy was in the garden, chasing a butterfly and giggling with pure delight. When he saw his father, he ran over and threw his arms around Marcus's waist. Daddy, Tommy cried, you're back. Look what I can do. He did a little dance that was so silly and wonderful that Marcus couldn't help but laugh along. Tommy, Marcus whispered, tears streaming down his face. You can laugh again. I could always laugh, Daddy, Tommy said, confused. But for a while I forgot how. It was like there was a dark cloud over my heart. But then the cloud went away, and I remembered how to be happy again. Marcus looked up and saw Elena standing in the doorway. She was watching them with an expression he hadn't seen in months. Love, pure and simple. Marcus, she said softly, something's different about you. I've learned something important, Marcus replied, still holding Tommy close. I've learned that the most valuable things in life can't be bought with gold. They can only be earned through love. Elena walked over and touched his face gently. I can see it in your eyes, she said. The greed is gone. You look like the man I married. I want to be that man again, Marcus said. I want to be the husband and father you both deserve. Then you will be, Elena said and kissed him softly. As they stood there in the garden, surrounded by the warm light of sunset, Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in years. Complete happiness. He had lost a fortune in gold, but he had gained something infinitely more precious. The tree spirit appeared beside them, visible only to Marcus. You have learned well, she said with a smile. Wisdom was never about knowing the future. It was about understanding what truly matters in the present. What happens now? Marcus asked quietly. Now you live, the tree spirit replied. You live with humility, with love, with the knowledge that the greatest treasures are the ones you share, not the ones you hoard. She began to fade, but her voice remained clear. Remember, Marcus. True wealth is not measured in gold, but in the laughter of children, the love of family, and the peace that comes from knowing you've done the right thing. As the tree spirit disappeared, Marcus felt a deep sense of peace settle over him. He had learned the hardest lesson of all, that wisdom is only a gift to those who listen with humility, who choose love over greed, and who understand that the most precious things in life cannot be owned. They can only be shared. From that day forward, Marcus lived differently. He used his existing wealth to help others, opening schools and hospitals instead of buying more treasures. He listened to his family instead of counting his coins. He gave freely instead of hoarding greedily. And every evening, as he sat in his garden listening to Tommy's laughter and watching Elena's smile, Marcus remembered the tree's final lesson. That the greatest magic in the world is not in knowing the future, but in appreciating the present, and in having the wisdom to choose love over everything else. The talking tree of Umburu forest was gone, but its wisdom lived on in the heart of a man who had finally learned what it truly meant to be rich.